What does it really mean to measure distance? Not just on a number line or in a plane, but in any abstract set. That's exactly what metric spaces give us. A metric space is a set X together with a distance function d that takes any 2 points and returns a real number, subject to 3 axioms. First, positivity. The distance between 2 distinct points is always strictly positive, and the distance from a point to itself is 0. Second, symmetry. The distance from P to Q is the same as from Q to P. Third, the triangle inequality. Going directly from P to Q is never longer than taking a detour through some third point R. Now let's see what these axioms look like geometrically in R2. Here are 2 points, P and Q. Draw a line between them. That distance is strictly positive. It can only be 0 if P and Q are the same point. Now symmetry. The distance from P to Q equals the distance from Q to P. The direction doesn't matter. Now, the triangle inequality. The direct yellow path from P to Q is always shorter than the green detour through R. This is the most important axiom, the one you'll use most in proofs. The same idea works in R3. 3 points, same triangle, just floating in space. The dimension doesn't change the rule. Now for concrete examples. In Euclidean space, distance is just the straight line length. On the real line, it's the absolute difference. 1 to 4, distance is 3. In the plane, we use Pythagoras. The distance here is the square root of 13. In 3 dimensions, same idea. Just add another squared term. Here, the square root of 14. The dashed lines break it down. Each coordinate difference squared, then summed under the root. That's the Euclidean metric. It works in any dimension. Now, any subset Y of a metric space X is itself a metric space, using the same distance function, just restricted to Y. Open parentheses define a segment, every x strictly between a and b, never touching either end. Square brackets define a closed interval, so x can equal a or b right up to the boundary. Half-open intervals mix both, one endpoint locked in, the other left out. A K-cell is a higher dimensional interval. Constrain each coordinate between its own bounds and you get a K-cell. 1 constraint gives an interval, 2 give a rectangle, 3 give a box. And the pattern continues into any dimension. A 3-cell in R3 is just a box. Each of the 3 coordinates confined to its own interval, stacked together into a bounded region of space. Now, let's define balls in a metric space. A ball is all points within distance r of a center x. The open ball uses strict inequality. The boundary is excluded. The closed ball includes it. In one dimension, both are simply intervals centered at x. In R2, balls become disks. The open ball has a dashed boundary. Points on the circle are excluded. The closed ball has a solid boundary. The circle itself is part of the set. Same radius, same center. One key difference at the edge. In R3, balls become spheres. The open ball is transparent. The surface is not part of the set. Only the interior counts. The closed ball is solid. The surface belongs to the set. Every boundary point included. Same center, same radius, but a fundamentally different relationship with the edge. A set is convex if the line segment between any 2 of its points stays entirely inside. The disk on the left is convex. The segment never escapes. The L shape on the right fails. Connect those 2 points and the segment exits the set. Balls in K cells are always convex. The same property holds in 3 dimensions. Pick any 2 points inside the sphere. The segment between them stays entirely within, never touching the boundary, never escaping. This isn't a special feature of 2 dimensions. Convexity is a geometric property that carries through to 3 dimensions and beyond. A neighborhood of P, written n sub r of P, is the set of all points whose distance from P is strictly less than r. On the real line, this gives us an open segment. In the plane, it becomes an open disk. And in 3 dimensions, the neighborhood becomes the interior of a sphere. Every point within distance r of P lives inside this ball. Notice the boundary is transparent. It's excluded, just like the endpoints of a segment in R1. A point P is called a limit point of E if every neighborhood of P, no matter how small, contains at least one point of E different from P. Look, as the radius shrinks, there are always points of E trapped inside. You can never escape them. Now, the opposite situation. If P belongs to E but is not a limit point, we call it an isolated point. That means we can draw a neighborhood around P that contains no other point of E at all. P sits alone, separated from the rest of the set. A set is closed if it contains all its limit points. A set is open if every point is interior. You can fit a neighborhood entirely inside. Dashed boundary means open. Solid boundary means closed. And a set can be both open and closed, or neither. In 3 dimensions, the same idea holds. The transparent sphere on the left is open. Its boundary surface is excluded, and every interior point has room to breathe. The solid sphere on the right is closed. The boundary is part of the set. That green dot sits right on the surface, and it belongs to the closed ball. A point P is interior to E if some neighborhood fits entirely inside E. The complement of E is everything in X that lies outside E. Together, they partition the whole space. 3 more properties. A set is perfect if it's closed, and every point is a limit point. No isolated points at all. It's bounded if the entire set fits inside some ball. And it's dense if it fills the whole space in the limit, like the rationals inside the reals. Between any 2 real numbers, there's always a rational. Here is our first major theorem. Every neighborhood is an open set. To prove this, we need to show that every point Q inside the ball has its own smaller ball that fits entirely within the original neighborhood. Let's see how. We begin the proof. Here is our neighborhood, a ball of radius r centered at P. The dashed boundary reminds us it's open. Now, pick any point Q inside this ball. We measure the distance from P to Q. Since Q lies inside the ball, this distance is strictly less than r. We define h as r minus d of P and Q. This is the leftover distance, the gap between Q and the boundary. Because d of P, Q is strictly less than r, h is strictly positive. Now, draw a ball of radius h around Q. It fits snugly inside the original neighborhood, just touching the boundary. Any point S in this small ball should also lie in the big one. Now pick any point S inside the small ball. By the triangle inequality d of P, S is at most d of P, Q plus d of Q, S. We know d of P, Q equals r minus h, and d of Q, S is less than h. Adding them gives strictly less than r. So d of P, S is less than r minus h plus h, which equals r. That means S belongs to the original neighborhood. Since S was arbitrary, the entire small ball around Q sits inside the big ball. So Q is an interior point, and the neighborhood is open. Our next theorem says something stronger than the definition. If P is a limit point of E, not only does every neighborhood contain a point of E, it contains infinitely many. We'll prove this by contradiction. Suppose, for contradiction, that some neighborhood of P contains only finitely many points of E. Let's call them Q1 through Qn, all distinct from P. Now measure the distance from P to each of these points. Since every Q sub I is distinct from P, each distance is strictly positive. We take the smallest one. Let R equal the minimum of all these distances. This is a positive number. Now draw a ball of radius r around P. It's strictly smaller than the distance to the closest point, so every single Q lies outside it. But P is a limit point. By definition, every neighborhood of P must contain some point of E different from P. Yet this ball contains none of them. That's a contradiction. Our assumption was wrong. There must be infinitely many. As an immediate corollary, a finite set has no limit points at all. If E only has finitely many points, no point can have infinitely many neighbors from E. So, the definition of limit point can never be satisfied. Our first example, the open disk, all complex Z with absolute value strictly less than 1. Is it open? Yes. Every interior point has room for a neighborhood inside. Closed? No. The boundary point ZU equals 1 is a limit point not in the set. Bounded? Yes. Perfect? No, since it's not closed. Now the closed disk, all Z with absolute value less than or equal to 1. The solid boundary means every limit point is included, so it's closed. But it's not open. That boundary point has no neighborhood that stays inside. Perfect? Yes. Closed, and every point is a limit point. Bounded? Yes. Example C, a finite set, just 3 points in the plane. There are no limit points at all, so the set is closed vacuously. But it's not open. Every point is isolated, with no neighborhood that stays inside the set. Bounded? Yes. Perfect? No, since every point is isolated. The integers, isolated dots stretching in both directions. Every point has a gap around it with no other integers inside, so there are no limit points. That makes it closed for the same vacuous reason as the finite set. Not open, not perfect, and not bounded either. The integers go on forever. This is the most interesting example so far. The set is 1, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, and so on. The terms cluster more and more densely near 0. Notice how the dots pile up on the left. 0 is a limit point. Every interval around it, no matter how tiny, captures infinitely many terms of the sequence. But here's the catch. 0 itself is not in the set. We only have 1 over n for positive integers n, and 0 is never 1 over n. Since the set misses one of its own limit points, it's not closed. Is it open? No. Each point 1 over n is isolated. You can draw a small enough neighborhood around any one of them that avoids all the others. Not perfect either, for the same reason, but it is bounded. Everything sits between 0 and 1. Our last example, the entire plane, R2. This is a special one. It is both open and closed at the same time. Open because wherever you pick a point, you can always fit a ball around it. There's no boundary to bump into, no edge to worry about. Closed because there is simply no outside. Limit points have nowhere to escape to. It's also perfect since it's closed and every single point is a limit point of the set. But bounded? Definitely not. The plane stretches on forever in every direction. Here's the full picture at a glance. Notice how each example highlights a different combination of properties. No two rows are alike.